Hi, I'm Sofia Sheehan of Barring Tape. I'm here today with Noora Niasari, the director of the Sundance drama Shayda. I just want to congratulate you. I really loved it. I thought it was such an intimate and touching mother-daughter story.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I know Shayda is based on your childhood. How did you decide what you were going to take out, what you were going to fictionalize, and what you were going to spotlight?
Yeah, so it's inspired by my mother and I's experience of living in an Australian women's shelter when I was 5 years old. And, I had very fractured memories of the time being 5 years old and being the situation that it was. So I asked her to write a memoir, and that tracked around 10 years of her life. And she spent around 6 months working on that. And with my guidance, we had a lot of tough conversations over that time. But it was, incredibly important to me to have, her perspective front and center of the film. And so I took that memoir, it was around 50,000 words, to Spain and wrote the first draft. And the first draft was very close to our experience and has a completely different structure to the film that you see now. But over the course of 3 years, it was really about finding the cinematic potential of the narrative beyond our experience. So I would say that it's emotionally true and emotionally autobiographical, but there's a lot of fictional elements that, make it a piece of cinema.
And I noticed the movie takes place in the 90s, but you don't overload it with a lot of 90s nostalgia. You're not playing the top 100 hits. A lot of the clothes seem kind of timeless. Was this intentional to kind of make it seem like it could happen any decade?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad that came across. That was definitely my intention. And, you know, I said it in the 90s because obviously the specificity of that time, the context of the community, like the makeup of the Iranian Australian community at the time really sets the scene, the divisions and this notion of Shayda breaking away. And finding freedom, it was more fraught at that time, and so there were more obstacles for her, and also women's shelters only recently, actually since the year, around the 2000s, did they become less communal. And I really wanted to capture this sense of women sharing space together and holding space for each other. And um, with regards to the 90s element, obviously I'm a 90s kid as well. So Lion King, the music, the fashion, I mean, all of it was really nostalgic for me, and I'm sure for many audiences too. But the thing is that, women escaping domestic violence, it's still a very challenging issue all over the world. And I think that that's part of the timelessness of the film, is that we're still facing these issues every single day, no matter where I've screened the film, whether it was in Korea or Switzerland, or Canada. You know, it's something that resonates because it's very real for people.
Yeah, and what's great about this movie, it's obviously the Australian submission for foreign language film, and so it
Mm.
represents an Australian film, but it's also very representative of Iranian women everywhere. I know in post production was when the
Yeah.
revolutions started going on.
Mhm.
How do you feel about representing these two cultures in one movie? Is it a bit daunting?
I mean, in a way, it's a privilege because, you know, we're shining a light on Iranian women all over the world, and Shada is just one of millions of women, fighting for freedom and fighting for independence from this patriarchal society. And while we were in post production, it was right at the beginning, actually. I was having a very hard time recovering from the shoot. I was in a dark place. And actually, my editor and I, she's also an Iranian woman, um, were working really hard, but it wasn't until the women's revolution started to take shape in Iran that I found the motivation to really, you know, finish the film in the time that we did. It really gave me that courage to, come out of my dark place to finish the film, because it was like I was seeing what women were doing in the streets in my home country, and I was like, what I'm going through is nothing compared to that, and I have agency with this film, and we have to finish it as soon as we can. So, you know, that was kind of the process, and how it linked, and it was it was kind of phenomenal, the parallels that were happening, you know, like in the scene where she's cutting her hair, um and you know, that was a constant motif and visual that we were getting from Iran, in terms of women, you know, taking a stand and, you know, finding agency in how they wanted to present themselves. And, you know, I think that the film, yeah, it speaks to that larger issue, but it's also, as you said, timeless, and um, hopefully it'll be such in the in years to come as well.
Right. Yeah, definitely the hair cutting scene for me really kind of jumped out.
Mhm.
How long was principal photography, and when did you shoot?
We shot in July, August of last year, 2022, and we had a 6 week shoot, 30-day shoot. And it was very whirlwind and challenging, especially because we were working with a 6-year-old child and the restrictions around working with a child actor. So yeah, that's kind of the timeline.
And I know this is your first feature film. You've done, you know, short films before, but how is this experience different? And also, not only is this your first film, but Kate Blanchett is an executive producer. How does that change things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I've been working toward this point, you know, my whole career. Like since I was 19, I've been making short films, documentaries, film school, you know, mentorships, you name it. So it's something that I've been working towards. I guess the reason why it was so different is because um I didn't anticipate how psychologically and emotionally challenging it would be to tackle this particular film. You know, given it's, you know, inspired by my childhood trauma, you know, and it's you know, it was very triggering at times. So I would say that that was the biggest challenge for me, and also was it was about protecting Selena, who plays Mona, the child actor, from the themes of the film. You know, I took a really maternal role, and those were kind of the main challenges in making my first feature. And you know, having, you know, incredible experience behind me in Vincent Sheehan, in Kate Blanchett, in Dirty Films, it was an absolute privilege, and they, you know, them being in my corner and being champions of the film. So and now Sony Pictures Classics, you know, distributing it. It's a wonderful vote of confidence, both in the film, and in its capacity to reach audiences worldwide.
Right. Another thing, you mentioned the young actress, but
Mm.
Shayda, Zara Mir Ibrahimi, who recently did Holy Spider and has, you know, all this critical acclaim behind her. How did you convince her to take on the role, and what was it like working with her? Because she's phenomenal in the movie.
She is. I'm so proud of the work she did. Yeah, I mean, we searched all of Australia for Shayda and we couldn't find her. So we started an international search, and um, Zara actually put down a tape, you know, surprisingly. It was before Holy Spider, before she won Cannes for Best Actress. And as soon as I saw her tape, within like the first 10 seconds, I knew she was Shayda. It was just one of those instinctual moments for me. Because she has this incredible duality of vulnerability and strength. And the way that she expresses emotion just through her eyes, and it's just phenomenal how how her screen presence just transcends. And yeah, I mean, we from the very first meeting that we had a deep connection, and that just got more and more um solidified, you know, as the process went on. And I learned so much from her. You know, she challenged me. I challenged her. We had a very beautiful creative collaboration, and you know, continue to be friends and sisters. And yeah, I think that our connection, and also her connection with my mom, who was part of that pre-production process, you know, helping Zar access, you know, whatever questions she needed about the character. You know, it was kind of like a sisterhood making a film.
Wow, that's great to hear. I also want to know if there's any particular films or directors that inspire you in general or the film.
Yeah, I mean, some of the touch points, you know, in the writing process were Asghar Farhadi's films, you know, the moral ambiguity of the way he captures Iranian characters. You know, he always says that there's no good or bad. And I really wanted to emphasize that this is not a black and white situation, you know, that every character, even the father character who's quote unquote the antagonist, he's a human being, and there's a lot of depth to his point of view as well. And I really didn't want to make something cliche, or so I really took a lot of inspiration from him. You know, in terms of the cinematography and like the female subjectivity of the film, Andrea Arnold's films were a real touch point for me, and my cinematographer especially. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would say those were the two main sources, but I love Almodovar, and you know, the way the color that he brings to um a situation, and the sisterhood that's created on screen. You know, I really wanted to capture those things as well in the women's shelter world.
And are there any themes and subject matters that inspire you as a filmmaker?
Uh, I would say that, you know, notions of identity, belonging, displacement, but also female empowerment, and yeah, finding light in darkness. You know, these are the kinds of things that I'm drawn to.
And a final question, what do you want audiences to take away from the film when the credits roll?
A sense of hope, a sense of hope, and a deeper understanding of women escaping domestic violence, and their bravery and courage.
I think that that definitely comes across. And speaking, my mom's not Iranian, but she is an immigrant, and I definitely felt some.
Oh, no. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I hope that she can see the film when it gets released.
I think she'd really like it. Yeah,
Oh,
I recommended it to her.
oh, fantastic.
All right, but thank you so much for doing this interview.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you.